All right. Welcome back, folks, to another episode of the Athenianer Show, where each episode is a new ripple containing unknown but unlimited impact. I am very excited today to introduce my guest, Kevin Zhou. He's a big fan of the show, and he told me he had a really cool idea for an episode. Um, and I said, "Great, let's do it." And here we are. So Kevin, why don't you introduce for us the audience, the topic of today's conversation.
All right. Hi everyone. I'm Kevin. So today I'm gonna be talking about this Chinese novel, which is called the Dream of Red Chamber, also known as
S-
the
The
Story of
story.
the Soul. So the book has got multiple names, um, and it's basically telling the story about a big family falling. That's well, in one sentence. Um, and the story itself is based in the Qing Dynasty, which is the last imperial dynasty of China, and the family itself is also highly aristocratic. And I'm gonna be talking about multiple themes, which this book also covers. So I'm gonna talk about so first of all, whether the book itself is pessimistic or optimistic, and second, the sort of Buddhist philosophies and thoughts that's permeating itself through the book, and finally, um, queer studies.
Mm. So, just for most of my audience is from the UK and the US who don't know. Uh, as I understand it, this book, The Dream of the Red Chamber, is one of the most famous novels in Chinese literature. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would say so. Um, I would read the book just because how famous it is.
And the Qing Dynasty, um, for those who don't know, when roughly what was the period in which the Qing Dynasty ruled?
I believe it's from the 17th century up until the 20th.
Mm, okay. And it was, as I understand it, it was an imperial.
About 300 years or so, just like any other Chinese dynasties.
Okay. And it was as you were telling me beforehand, it was ruled by.
Manchurians, which is right now is one of the ethnic minorities in China, which is now um, like more than 90 or so of the population belongs to the Han Chinese group, whereas um, basically um, Manchurians are an ethnic minority, but not back then. It was Manchurians. The Manchurians were the sort of ruling ethnic groups across China.
Mm.
Yeah.
And so do the characters in the novel belong also to like the Manchurian?
Actually, the novel itself doesn't really dictate whether the family is from like it doesn't really say um like what sort of societal context this family belongs to, and it doesn't say so on purpose. So I think it's for two reasons mainly. First of all, obviously, under the pressure of the imperial rule, obviously the author doesn't want to get into trouble, like political trouble, just by saying that, oh, this family belongs to, this aristocrats, which would get the author into trouble. It was quite intense political atmosphere. And second of all, it sort of wants um audience from every other societal context, including, like, for example, from the future or from different parts of the world, to sort of,
Relate to the.
yeah, relate and sort of bring themselves into the story and be able to immerse themselves into the story.
I see. So he wasn't he didn't want to limit it to just
Yeah.
uh, issues related to the um, I don't know.
Yeah, in some sense, the author believes that the thing that he's talking about is kind of universal to human.
And who is the author? I don't know if we.
Uh, His name is Cao Xueqin.
That's it. Okay.
He just wrote this novel, and he died after writing the 80th chapter of the novel, and the another person sort of picked that up and wrote the final 40 chapters. Actually, there are many sequels to the original 80 chapters,
Wow.
um, but none of that sort of has the level that the original author is like.
Okay. So the original is 80 chapters, or would you say 120?
It's unfinished.
Unfinished.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, all right. So that is kind of the background of the story. So why don't you um I mean, do you have specific themes that you want to talk about? Do you want to give like the audience a brief overview of the plot uh first? Maybe that would be
Okay.
helpful.
Yeah. So from the top of my head, um, the story kind of first features this stone which sort of talks in a really mythical way. Um, and why does the stone talk? Because the stone saw a Buddhist monk and a Taoist monk. Remember Taoist being a Chinese indigenous religion. So Buddhist and Taoist monk, they sort of encountered the stone, and the stone was asking the monks to bring it to the human world so that it could experience um the colorfulness of the human world and enjoy itself. And there it goes. That's the beginning of the story. A stone wants to experience humanity.
How did the stone, I mean, get, is there an explanation of how the stone got there or started, was able to speak?
um I read one of the commentaries in the original book, and the comment was really sassy. It says, "Whoever asked the question has no heart."
Well, there you go. I guess I have no heart. Um,
It's like that's not important. What's important is the fact that a stone wants to experience humanity.
okay. So the stone wants to experience humanity, and he because he meets the um Taoist and Buddhist monk.
Hmm.
Um, and so how does he then go from being a stone to experiencing humanity?
Because the monks agreed to bring the stone to the humanity, and it's
Okay.
sort of um like the monks sort of somehow the stone's soul, if it has one, ends up in um a newborn baby's mouth, and that newborn baby is the main character of the whole book.
I see.
Yeah.
So the stone basically becomes uh ingrained, or I guess incarnated into a newborn baby.
Could be, you could say that. You could also say that the newborn baby has got like a stone which becomes a jade that sort of hides in his mouth when he like was born into this world.
Ah,
And the stone or the jades basically, um, in the Chinese language, it symbolizes desire.
okay.
Yeah, because it's the same pronunciation. Yu.
I see.
Yeah. So
Um,
both jade and desire.
Very interesting.
So desire was born into this baby.
Very cool. And so this baby becomes the main character.
Hmm.
Um, and I guess he's from, as I understand, he's from an aristocratic family.
Yeah, that's all you know.
What?
That's all you know about the baby and the family, because as I said before, there's no particular social context that the family belongs to.
Okay. And then so I guess what is the arc of the story for those who are like the stone? Um,
And then it like the baby boy grows up
okay,
and surrounded by girls.
I see.
Yeah.
So it's a love story.
there are some stories like plot lines um that describes the relationship between the boy and like the female characters around him.
Mm, okay.
And during the middle of, it was the fifth chapter or sixth chapter, but um like this boy had a dream in like one of the girls' chamber. It was like so it was all relatives, right? It might sound weird, but in it was not like so weird in like back then in China. It's like it's pretty common to have relationships with your cousin or something. Like people don't have any idea of like why that might be bad. It's just like you just take it for granted. But this boy went into one of the girls' chambers, like bed chambers, and he fell asleep. And um during his sleep, he had a dream, and that dream was really significant because that's the first time he got like sexual experience with one of the
I see.
figures in his dream. And it also sort of um like the boy has like the boy also listens to like a sort of opera thing, which sort of sets the foundation for the entire book. It
Mm.
also tells the destiny of like all the main characters basically.
So is that why it's called Dream of the Red Chamber?
Hmm.
Ah, very interesting. Um,
The red chamber sort of symbolizes like uh human life.
really?
Yeah.
Ah, I would have thought that would be like the because when you're talking about
And
the
also probably because there are like lots of female characters
yeah, I was gonna say
in the
the
family.
when you talked about him having his first like
Sexual
sexual experience,
experience.
that's what came to mind for me first when I, like the Red Chamber.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so I guess
Yeah,
you
mainly because there's a lot of girls. Yeah.
okay. um, so I guess you probably don't want to give too much away from the book, right?
Yeah, I don't want to spoil the book, and also it's like impossible for me to give a full summary of the plotline just because how long the book is.
Right. So why don't we get into some of the themes that you said at the beginning that you're planning on talking about? Um, do you have one that you prefer to start with? I mean, I was thinking Buddhism would be a very interesting.
Can we start with the actual plotline first?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So there are multiple stories that took place in this book, and one of them being the main character, Jia Baoyu, his relationship towards um two of the female characters. So one of them is actually um his little cousin. Her name was Lin Daiyu, and they sort of got a thing from there's a thing that's happening between them in a really early age. And then they really liked each other. Not in a sexual way, but in a really effective way because they're too young. And of course, it will be unimaginable. And as they grow up, everyone, include themselves, thought that they're gonna get married eventually. Uh, but there's one chapter when the family's attitude towards this couple changed. They thought that the two are not really suitable for each other, but instead there's another girl. Um, Her name was Xue Baochai, and the family thought that well, maybe this new girl has a better fit for the main character. So eventually, it was these people got married, whereas the main character Jia Baoyu, he believed that he married the person he wanted to, but actually when the marriage is the ceremony was over and they were brought into their room, um it was at that moment he figured that he didn't marry the person he wants to, whereas the person he wants to marry died in tuberculosis.
Wait, so he there's basically two it starts out two young people who are in love, not in a sexual way, as you said, because they're young, and then they
They
think
just really like each
they
other.
really like each other, and they think they're going to get married. Everybody thinks they're going to get married. That's kind of how it's leading, and then at the ceremony, um, oh, you said after the ceremony is when
Yeah,
he realizes.
yeah,
So how does that?
like the wedding, I mean.
How does that
Yeah.
work? How does that work? That like, because I would think even I know nothing about how weddings are taking place in China, but how would it work that he would go through the ceremony not knowing, and then only when he um
You could think that he's being hypnotized.
really interesting. That is I mean, I'm guessing so he probably didn't take the news very well, right?
Hmm?
I mean, I'm assuming that he was pretty depressed after finding out that he didn't marry the woman he loved.
He was he was dead, like at a psychological level, but he didn't die eventually. He had a really great life, I would say.
Really?
Yeah.
So what? So okay. So what happened after he the woman he loved died of tuberculosis, and he marries the woman that he doesn't want to love?
Because there's so I want to bring us back to the symbolism of jade, which supposedly would symbolize desire. Um, I think during that moment, when he figured out, like around that time, when he figured out that he married the person he didn't want to, he somehow lost his jade. Like he was always the jade was always around him, um, throughout his childhood, and at that moment, like around those time, he sort of lost it. So try to think about what that means. Like he lost his, you know, desire.
Mm. I was gonna say, what do you? Because there's different kinds of desire, and desire can be, I guess, towards different things, or you could say desire is just is a holistic perspective. I mean, what do you think that desire represent? Like what?
Desire, like the J represents desire, which
But desire
all of us
for
have.
I guess do you take it as desire for something specific, or desire is a holistic?
Just desire itself.
Okay. So he loses that desire after.
He no, he lost the jade. He lost the jade, which supposed to symbolize desire. Yeah.
Okay. He loses the jade that symbolizes desire. So in a way, I mean, so do you think that the author wants us to wants people to see that moment, him losing the jade, as him coinciding with him losing his desire?
I wouldn't say he lost his, like there's no way to tell that he lost his desire. Like all we can tell is like as a matter of fact, he lost the jades.
Okay. Um, and
Let me finish actually. So, um, I would give an argument as to why the original couple don't work together well, whereas um the new couple, where like the main character married the person he doesn't want to, they actually have like a better fit than the original one, and I'm gonna say that I kind of sympathize the family's decision.
why is that?
Yeah. The reason is because, well, the original couple, although they sort of love each other as they believe, they also argue a lot. They have many points in common. They both like poems and arts, and they also think the same way. They're like their sort of mindsets is really really similar in a way that's they always second guess each other, and most of the time they will be correct.
Mm,
So that's the matter. That's like that's what happens on the surface level. So you will see this couple, young couple, um, running around having fun, reciting poems, but also you see a lot of fighting and second guessing.
mm. So you think it was the right thing for him not to marry that girl?
Um, in the ideal worlds, they are the perfect soulmates,
Okay,
but we are not living in an ideal world.
I see. So,
And the 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 person that he actually married, um, I would say that they complement each other in a variety of ways.
mm,
Like the girl was really clear headed, really rational, whereas the guy is really emotional and could be from time to time crazy, act in a way.
mm. That's very interesting because I don't know. I think I would expect most people to see that situation as, um, I don't know, that it should be the other way, that like you should marry the person that you love and not necessarily the person that's like quote unquote the best fit on paper, but it seems like you're kind of challenging a little bit of
Romanticism.
romanticism.
So that's the idea that there is your one and only soulmate out there. You just have to find it. Um, Even if that's gonna take you a lifetime to find it, and you're gonna marry the right person, and life will be happy.
Mm. And you seem to like how do you feel about that romanticism?
I want a soulmate if there is one, but sadly there isn't. I
Interesting.
want my one and only, but there isn't just there isn't an one and only because just simply there just simply isn't.
So in a way do you think that like
Like it's a really idealized sort of situation where you get to do that, but um there's like the world is not perfect, and um it doesn't happen it doesn't always happen to be the case that you marry the right person you always want to. Like not all it's like not even like occasionally the case, like very rarely the case. Like yeah, I would say.
mm,
And I'm not sure if the audience is familiar with Pride and Prejudice. I think that's a similar idea. It's like a couple who complements each other sort of goes along better.
mm. So do you think the author through the story was trying to emphasize the point that you just made, that we can't expect there to be like one person, one soulmate out there that we find, and trying to critique that notion a little bit?
I believe that the author doesn't want to make any points. I think that the author writes this book to entertain us. That's what the author says in the first few chapters of the book.
Mm,
It is up to the reader to interpret whatever meaning that they want to.
mm,
And if you think that the author wants to teach you a lesson, then go for it. But um, I just believe that the author is simply describing what is the case, and he does a good job.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that is an interesting perspective because I think I guess the counter to that would be like by describing things as they are. There's different ways, right, to describe certain things, and maybe the way that he describes them are done in such a way to convey certain aspects of the situation. And he chose to convey those certain aspects in a specific way because he wanted to comment on this aspect of society. But um,
He would like to bring the readers into the story, I would say.
okay, all right, um, all right. So, do you have the next?
Yeah. So Buddhist philosophies was the next thing I want to talk about.
Okay.
So we just finished talking about romantic relationship and why that doesn't work, which is because just simply the world is not ideal.
Mm.
um and the next thing I want to talk about is a really important concept throughout the whole book, um, and that's impermanence. So that's one of the basic laws that governs the universe. Nothing lasts. Um, Everything dies eventually. And that's also what the book is trying to show us. So by showing us how the sort of big family from a really well-off and wealthy setting, seen by the fact that they spent so much on a tiny like funeral. It was not a tiny funeral, but it's like for a really trivial character in the book. So when that trivial character of the in the book died, the family spent extraordinarily huge resources, wealth, and also materials to um organize this funeral. And the author spent a whole chapter just writing about this really extraordinary funeral. It was a really big scene. Um, it involves lots of servants walking around and lots of ceremonies, uh, like rituals as well. Um, and so that's what happens at starts. The family is really rich, so that they can spend all these resources on a really trivial character in the book. So fast forward to the last few characters of the book when the actual leader or the sort of runner, the operator of the family dies. The funeral, well, there wasn't even a funeral because the family was so poor that like they kind of have no resources, so they just like sort of um buried the the um heads of the family. So you can see from this um like falling of the family that's like no matter how huge the scene is in the beginning, it is necessarily going to collapse. And you can also see it from the sort of like towards the beginning of the book. There's like a big party when they um have crabs, and crabs is a really delicate food. Like
Crabs.
yeah, crabs.
Okay.
Like it's considered to be a really um like it's considered to be a delicacy. Um, Kind of like caviar. Yeah. So imagine you have a dinner party. There's gonna be caviar, and you just like you and your besties sit around the table, and there's moon, there's wine. You um all of you are like really exhilarated. You kind of rub the caviars on to each other's faces like to celebrate. That's what they did. They rubbed like the crab rolls like onto each other's faces. It was a really heartening scene, a really happy scene. Also really warm as well. Compare that to the sort of um like dying scene, like at the end, like most people died. Compared to that scene, um,
Mm.
yeah, and you'll sort of notice that um, like whatever the um, it's like inside this facade of happiness, it lies the roots of um sorrow and suffering, because that's happiness can't last forever.
Mm.
That's also one thing that the authors want to describe.
So it's very interesting that, like you said, that the funeral, like the extravagant funeral,
Mhm.
um, was the change in extravagant funeral to just bare bones type of funeral where they just bury their heads because they don't have any money. That's,
Of course, that elapsed throughout, like
yeah,
through a really long
long period
time.
of
Yeah.
time. But that's kind of the symbolism of the idea of like impermanence, that nothing is permanent. Um, because I guess the funeral in itself is a reminder that
You could also say that. Yeah.
yeah, that
Hmm.
like that nothing is permanent. Or that not nothing that's permanent, but life itself doesn't last forever. And it's I guess funerals are in some sense a reminder of that for people that are alive, that our lives are not going to continue forever, and that we're not going to be on this earth forever.
Yeah, and also you can also see the like during the middle of the novel where the author is trying to describe how the family runs itself, how this really powerful female figure who is the runner of the family, like she sort of calculates um really like in detail, like she's really um effective in running the family. But she's like she's also aware that there are corruption in this family. It's just simply too big. You cannot control everyone,
Mm.
no matter how effective or how much power you have. It is not a matter of how much power you have or how capable you are running the family. The family is going to die eventually. Like no matter what. Like despite there are some apparent failings, um, that the runners of the family has made, the author is not trying to make a point that, oh, because of this, because you failed to achieve this, that's the reason the family dies. The author wants to show us that it's necessarily going to end in this way.
Mm. So, okay. So like the idea that, I mean, I tend to, like, you think about a roller coaster, and no matter how high you go, it's always gonna come down.
Hmm.
Um, it also, I know I'm not an expert in Buddhist philosophy. I haven't really studied it, but I do know like the kind of um was it attachment is the root of all suffering. Um,
Desire, yeah.
yeah. Um, and like to me the idea like of accepting that nothing is permanent um is kind of relates stronger to that idea, that if you accept that if you kind of let go of the idea that you have to hold everything forever or hold certain things forever, and get super stressed about things ending. If you let go of that idea, then you can, I guess, free yourself.
That is really easy to say, but really hard to do.
Yeah, of
So
course,
in
of course.
in the novel, they of course they tried to in many ways to remind themselves of the facts. One of them like would go would go depressed, like really depressed, um, in like the crab dinner party and be like, oh, since all gatherings eventually dissolves, like you have a party and like you go home. What is the point of like hosting this party anyway? What is the point of gathering anyway? Um, like one of the character occasionally makes this sort of like um has this sort of like eruption um about just how things don't last. Um and also in multiple points, the family also invites monks and nuns from Buddhism, like Buddhist and Taoist monasteries, to host rituals for people and to make sacrifice. And also, there's one particular scene that gives me really deep impression, which is that they try to organize themselves to copy Buddhist scriptures. So everyone's copying the same Buddhist scripture for the like in the hope that something good's about the like something good's gonna happen to the family. Like it's gonna recover itself from the corruption, from bankruptcy, for whatever. And of course, given the end of the book, that doesn't work really well. So the author is also trying to show like how people could end up in blind faith, trying to take the scriptures only at its face value or even like copying it without even understanding what's going on, but um sort of believes blindly that it's got some supernatural power, such that if you um do the things that it describes or like just do whatever rituals, some miracles gonna happen. There's no like, but as a matter of fact, there's no supernatural power or miracles gonna happen. Like, it's just how the universe works.
When you say like scriptures, what are you referring to specifically?
So imagine someone who just copies the Bible without understanding it,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
but hoping that the Bible, just by copying the Bible, God is going to um to give them all the benefits and like invites them into the heaven when they die.
Mm-hmm. And you're saying that this notion is challenged in throughout the book.
Um, I wouldn't say it's a notion because it's just blind faith. So this blind faith is being challenged.
I see. I see. Um, and I guess I'm having what I'm trying to understand is what is the in the story specifically, what is the like blind faith into what do the characters have?
Just blind faith into like things will turn to the better if you do this sort of rituals.
And are these rituals that come from just history,
Yeah, it could
tradition?
be historical rituals or um like traditional rituals that's like lost their original meanings. Like think about the superstitions that you really don't get.
Mm-hmm. I see. Um, okay. Do you have anything more to say about Buddhism, or do you want to move to the next?
Yeah, I want to move to queer studies. Actually, I wouldn't even call it a queer study because, um, like there is it is a really different sort of concept. Um, so the main character not only into girls, he's also into boys.
Okay.
So there's two figures who um kind of like discovered sexuality with the main character, and one of them is a girl and the other is a boy. Um, and what do you think of this character? How would you like? What term would you use to describe this kind of sexual orientation? Is it bisexuality? But I wouldn't say so because there's no such concepts in the sort of in the sort of like social milieu in like China at that period. So there wasn't even like a categorization of like gayness or bisexualness or lesbianism. It's just simply that um you like another person. There's a romantic relationship going on.
Mm-hmm.
Um and you can tell this from the fact that the author doesn't really draw into their sexual orientation. The author doesn't really emphasize on the fact that he likes someone that has a same sex with the with him. But I would imagine that a Western um author would depict this kind of relationship as gay relationship, whereas the author for this book, The Dream of Red Chamber, he just depicts the relationship as relationship. Um, Simply that.
Mm. Does he? Okay. I guess there's a couple questions that I have.
Yeah.
The first is just, does he? You said that he has this like sexual desire, or did you say this encounter with a guy and a girl, or he has desire for a guy and a girl? Like, I guess the question that I'm asking is, does he? The character gets married to
Yeah, a
a
female.
female, but
Mhm.
does he actually have a relationship with a guy in the story?
Yeah, that was before the marriage.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
I see. Um, and the second question I had is at this time, um, was because you kind of spoke about the kind of labels of like bisexual or gay or whatever didn't really apply. That wasn't they didn't think
Yeah,
of thing.
like labeling sexuality to me, like it strikes me as a Western thing, like people in the West tend to do.
Mm. So like it wasn't. So I guess okay.
Like at least from the beginning. Yeah, like the idea of LGBT sort of starts from the West.
I mean, do
Is
you
it?
even think now in China that people don't really think about, oh, you're gay, you're
Well, now they do because like the Western idea has spread to China.
okay.
Yeah.
But traditionally, it wasn't like, okay, you're a guy and you're in a relationship with another guy, therefore you're gay. You're a girl in a relationship with another girl, therefore you're lesbian. It was just kind of like, okay, you're in a
People
relationship.
just don't really care.
Okay. Um, was there like this is the third question I asked, but was there like an expectation that if you were from like a wealthy or aristocratic family that you and you're a guy that you get married to a girl, or was it like was there instances where a wealthy or a noble person was married to a guy, or a wealthy noble girl was married to a girl? Like, what was the? I guess I'm trying to draw the distinction between like it's accepted that you have a relationship, like a guy has a relationship with another guy, or a guy has desires, sexual desire for another guy, and then a guy marries another guy.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So you see the scene that's like gay couple marrying each other. Um, do you think that it really sort of like does it really is it really a sign of being inclusive towards gay people or other like um queer people, or do you think it's like actually um fortifying the social norm that you can be queer or whatever, but you have to get yourself married?
I have no idea.
Like the sort of um marriage between non-heterosexual couples, are they sort of like actually a sign of liberation, or are they actually a sign of like enforcing the social norm that's one should get married and have a family?
It's very tough for me to comment on that because I'm not, I'm not into the guys. So I it's
Yeah, me neither. I'm straight.
um, but so it's just yeah, it's hard. I feel like for me to comment on what gay people or lesbian people, or even just like as you said, not labeling it just guys who are into other guys or girls who are into other girls. It's hard for me to say how they feel about the I don't know the norm of marriage and whether they feel like the idea that you know that you should uh, that there's a thing of like gay marriage and then lesbian marriage and then straight marriage if they feel like that's um, reinforcing the idea that you should get married and start a family. It's tough for me to kind of comment on that because this
Well, the point I'm trying to make is this, right? So, um, having a relationship is not like equivalent to like getting yourself married. So
right.
you can still have a relationship, of course. Um, and from from what I've heard or read, I haven't seen any examples of like gay marriage in um contemporary or like ancient China, but there are records that says emperors used to have like male concubines.
Mm. See, that was actually what I was trying to get at with the
Yeah,
the question I had is like the distinction between marriage, like uh, guy and guy marriages versus guy and guy relationships in China.
yeah. I'm talking about like male emperor having male concubines.
Okay.
Yeah,
So there was like plenty of instances of like I guess correct me if I'm wrong, but this is kind of what I'm gathering. And again, I'm no scholar. Like I'm just going by on what I'm interpreting. It seems like that the idea of uh male to male sexual encounters or sexual relationships
hmm
was commonly known and accepted, but uh marriage was kind of thought to be guy and girl specific, like only.
Um, I would say that's mostly accurate.
Okay.
There's one thing I want to mention. Um, like females are also heavily repressed. You can tell by the plot of the book. You have many signs, like not signs, but like actual incidents that's like female are being repressed, oppressed, to death sometimes. I don't want to like make up, like I don't want to cover up the fact that's like people are being oppressed um in that society, like in that sort of social context is still of feudal society, and that could be really oppressive. And you have gay people, like you would describe them as gay people, but they just like really like men's. These people being oppressed, they're not just like, but they're oppressed not as gay, unlike people in the West, um, like from maybe a couple of decades ago, tend to be oppressed as gay people. So oppressions do happen. They just don't have the conception of like LGBT like the Western people have.
Um, I guess going back to you said that like women are heavily oppressed in this society, in this Judo society. Um, in what specific manners does that manifest itself in the novel?
Well, most of the servants, well, all of the servants are, I mean, yeah, um, all of the servants are like female. They are like basically the results of human trafficking,
Okay.
and um, that was like a really like it's considered to be a really normal thing in the novel. Like the author is not trying to sort of um euphemize that's like, that's the way it should work. But yeah, there are human traffickings like going on under open eyes.
I see.
Yeah.
Um, is this something that's specific to this particular dynasty, or was this something that was happening in other dynasties, or even, I don't know,
Like
after
now.
what?
Yeah, now.
Yeah.
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 Hmm.
Um, so you're saying that human trafficking is continuing to like a big issue today?
Hmm.
Okay. Um, I don't, I don't, I guess I don't want to make it too much about like,
We can talk about it in a later episode, I
okay,
guess. Yeah.
yeah, this is probably not the time
Mm.
to get into the human trafficking. But anyway, okay, you want to go on to the next theme?
I think that's pretty much it. Is it? Wait, did I say anything? And everything I want to say though.
You said Buddhism, plotline, and
And yeah, queer sort of LGBTQ themes. Um, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah.
okay. Well, I guess okay. The last kind of thing that ask you to do is, if you can, tell people again. This is most people that are probably going to listen to this and watch this are coming who have no idea, uh, like anything about Chinese culture, Chinese literature. Um, most of them are probably going to be in the UK or the US, and the US and Chinese governments right now are have a complicated relationship, and um, so I guess I don't know what's the pitch to people who are like don't know anything about um, Chinese culture or Chinese literature, um, to read this book. Like, how can you quickly, if somebody said, okay, you're just passing
Hmm.
by
Yeah.
and they're like, tell me why I should read this book, what would you say to
Trying
them?
to preach the book to people.
Yeah, what would you say to them in like, I don't know, 90 seconds?
Okay, so not even 90 seconds. So I will say that this book is meant to be universal, is pitching universal ideas, and I think it's suitable for anyone, no matter where you come from, what your background is. Um, this book has changed my life, and I don't believe that I need to read a second book in a while. And I believe that it's gonna change your life too.
Okay. And I just want to emphasize you said it took you a year.
Yeah,
So it's a very long book.
I think it's worth it.
Yeah. It's
Yeah, you need to find good translations though,
that is
or learn Chinese to read this book.
that's that's a more difficult task. I was reading that one of the great difficulties is translating this book into uh like English.
Yeah, well, my girlfriend met a Canadian guy, like in China, and he says that like he learned Chinese in order to read this book, and after he read the book, and he moved to China and like start to sell arts.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Um well, yeah. I I I think it's a tough task for people to um like obviously it's very difficult to learn Chinese. Um but I would say yeah, I don't know. I guess it can be helpful too to like if you if you are reading a translation to try to supplement the translation with like I don't know like articles or scholars about like the way it's translated and the specific words.
At least pay attention to the names, like the characters' names. Um, they're not named in a random way. Those names are like kind of important. and sometimes there's also symbolism in it. So like pay attention to the names. They're not just like meaningless syllables.
Mm. Okay. All right.
Yeah, we can wrap up.
That about does it. Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you so much, Kevin.
Of course.
Subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. And also, I've got I don't know, keep on telling everybody about this. I've got a survey that I'm trying. It's an anonymous survey. It takes about 30 seconds to fill out, and it's just asking who is your favorite leader of all time. It's really easy, but please fill it out because hoping to get a lot of responses, and then I'll do an episode analyzing the responses. So yeah, that about does it. Do you have any last words?
Well, see you.
Yes. Bye bye.